in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone, it's Drayton Boylston here with my partner Gary Henson. The crowd goes wild.
Yes, good afternoon everybody, good evening, hello.
And welcome to the Coaching Crucible, everyone. I'm glad to be back. I missed last session and Gary did a stellar job. I understand it sounded great and we're really grateful that you're here with us today. And we're going to be covering some terrific information today. And I want to start this off by maybe Gary, you want to share what we were talking about right before we came on today about some of the limitations and the mind over matter piece and how your mother factors into all that?
Yes, I'd absolutely, I'd be happy to do that. I'm joining the webinar right now. I got kicked off by accident. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I was explaining to Drayton that he asked me how I was doing, and I said I'm going to give you the same answer my mother gives people when they ask her how she's doing, and she says that she's fantastic. And I'll give you a little bit short snippet of the story. I was visiting my mother several weeks ago, and when my mother, okay, hold on, I gotta remute myself. There we go. When my mother, oh shoot, why is that showing up as an echo, Drayton?
We've got you in stereo, Gary.
I've got to put it on the mute here.
I've got to put it on the mute here. There's got to be a double.
Well, Gary, you want to clock off and then come back in? I'll just pick it up.
Well, let me try this. Let me do this.
Well, let me try this. Let me do this and see what happens. Hold on. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Drayton, are you there?
Yep.
Hello.
We got you, Gary. So let's just show of hands. If people can raise their hands, can you hear us okay? And we're coming through loud and clear. Just raise your hand just in the webinar if you would. Let us know you guys can hear us just fine. Thank you. Appreciate that. You guys are such a good audience. We appreciate it. So Gary, you back with us now, bud?
Okay, now I'm assuming there's no echo.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, good. So in visiting with my mother, I was explaining that this gentleman refers to, when I asked him, how did you do at the training last week, or how'd your week go, or whatever, he says, fantastic. And so my mother said she would adopt that as her new way of greeting people when she greets them. And a couple of weeks later, I followed up after visiting my mother. I made a phone call to her and said, hey, how you doing, Mom? And my sister to see how she's doing, and my sister-in-law answered the phone, and I said, how you doing, Linda? She says, fantastic. I said, where did you get that from? She says, well, your mother, every time somebody asks her how she's doing on the phone or in person, she tells them that she's doing fantastic. So the moral to the story is that that some of us can see some limitations in our lives, and some of us can feel as though we know what the results is possible and what's not possible. We limit ourselves. My mother happens to be 96 years of age, and she fell down just about a year ago and cracked her hip, and was in the hospital for a week or two in rehab for a couple of months, and now has come all the way back to not only feel better and be of a sound mind at almost 96 years of age. She'll be 96 in August, but she's actually doing more exercises and able to get herself up out of a wheelchair onto a walker all by herself, and she's exercising and pushing herself to get better. And the backstory of that is that I told Drayton that when my dad passed away in his mid-80s, my mom is about the same age as my dad. When he passed away, I wouldn't have given my mom 6 months or a year to live. She just was really kind of frail and lacked strength without my dad being part of her life. And she's come all the way back from that to prove to my brother and I that she thinks that she needs to show us that she can do it on her own and that she can doesn't have to rely 100% on other people. And so she tells everybody she's fantastic, and she says, Drayton, I'll give it back to you. She says that when you talk to her, that the more she says that, the better she feels, and the more that other people around her notice that in her, the more strength that she gains out of that. So pretty unbelievable story, and amazing what people can do even at the age of 96 years of age.
That's exactly right. God bless her. I think that's really amazing. And it really just points out what Gary and I went on to talk about is the power we have mentally to deal with our situations and to create a new situation. And so much of that is the way we speak to ourselves, the way, the negative self-talk, overcoming that, and dealing with things. We're here to serve. So I look at, the coaches that are out there beating themselves up and not making enough money, and this is going on. Boy, you have the ability right now from where you are to change whatever circumstances you perceive that you're in. And like Gary's mom, who in her 70s was, getting to that place where she was not really going to stay with Gary and his family much longer, deciding to make a change. And we have the same ability until the last breath we take to do the very same thing. So if you are battling some things and you have some challenges in your life, know that you have everything that you need to deal with the situation and to get to a different place. And it is truly a choice. And we hope that all of you make a choice in terms of growing your business, succeeding, as you may define that, in this thing called coaching as a business so you can serve other people. And it's just such an important thing, and we want to make sure that we're giving you the tools to do that. And by the way, Gary, I think it's really important, if you haven't gone to the YouTube site, if you go to Executive Coaching University, just search that on YouTube, and you'll see all the coaching crucibles that we've uploaded there. There we have dozens upon dozens of hours of training there. And maybe when you're feeling down, you're beating yourself up a little bit, your business may be taking a little bit of a downturn, go and listen to some of the previous programs that we've done and learn some new things. I have people sending notes all the time that say, boy, I've been coaching a long time. I went and I listened to this and I got so much out of it, and I made this change in my business. And if you're new to the business, there's just be a sponge. If you've been in the business a while and you need a boost, go, and all these trainings are free. So go to the YouTube site and listen and watch the old trainings, the ones we've done previously, the last 2.5 years, and boost yourself up and learn some new things and try new things, and don't become stale and stagnant with your business. Change things up and rewire your brain by doing so, and shift things. And the summer is such a great time to learn more, to focus on your business. We're almost halfway through the year, and this is a great time to kind of take a deep breath, evaluate your business, and make sure you have it in a place that you can fire through the rest of the year with great success. So many people do the planning at the Q4 of the previous year for the next year, and they don't even revisit it until we get to Q4 this year. And reality is we've got 12 months. So we're halfway through the year. So we would request that all of you look at your business. And Gary, I'd like to share this just now that I think about it. I know we've got a number of things we want to talk about today, but one of the things that I think is so important, I've got a whiteboard in my office. And on that whiteboard, it says 2015, where will revenue come from? and this is our business. I've got 3 different businesses, and this is our business in a snapshot. And I've got a list of all the different ways that revenue comes into our organization. And we track this, and I look at this every single day. And I know from experience from dealing with so many coaches that the money piece of it is almost secondary for a lot of you. And I would say if you have a whiteboard or any kind of vision board, or you've got flip charts, and you can get any of these things, put them in your office and track your revenue. And look at this, we track it quarter by quarter by quarter, so we know every single quarter how we're doing versus projections, and really down to a monthly basis how we're doing on projections. And this, it's so important to track all of this instead of just getting to the end of the year and saying, oh boy, how much did I make or not? And that's the one time during the year you look at this, and that's it. So if it's top of mind, if it's visually there in front of you every single day, where you know you've got your revenue, and Gary, I'll give them, all the folks that are listening, I'll give you the different areas. We've broken these out. There are 10 different areas, and this just food for thought in terms of where you may be getting your revenue today, or where maybe you want to get your revenue in the future. So let me give you this quick list. So one-on-one coaching, our classes and our products, facilitation, consulting, programs, book sales, royalties, group coaching, affiliate sales, and speaking. Now, there are more. We've come up with 50, but these are the top 10. So when you track your revenue as a business owner, you should know exactly where your money's coming from and where you have the highest margins, where you are growing, where maybe it could be stagnating. And this is just part of running your business. So Gary, that was just top of mind for me as I look at our board and our tracking board, and just kind of we call it our dashboard, and the importance of focusing on these things. And now that we're getting into this, let's talk about those 3 areas that we talked about during Webex, that are the top 3 areas that we feel that you need to really work on and master as a coach. You want to start off on those, Gary?
Yes, and I loved what you said there, Drayton, so I'm not going to elaborate on it, but really what we're talking about is the business of coaching. And I want everyone to understand and make sure you heard Drayton say, he didn't say running your coaching practice. He kept referring to you and us as entrepreneurs, thinking like a business person, acting and being a business person, as well as a executive coach or business coach or a coach, is something that we all need to get better at, including Drayton and myself. We help each other, Drayton and I, all the time with ideas. Drayton's always asking me, how can I help you get better, Coach Gary? What areas do you think that I might be able to help you with? So the 3 areas we want to talk about today are the areas that we feel that you as a coach can provide your clients something that they can't provide themselves. These 3 areas: outside objective opinion, a powerful accountability partner, and provide results for them in areas where they can't provide results for themselves. So areas where they have blind spots, or like in my case, typically when I go to diet, Drayton, oftentimes, unless I have somebody help me lay out a diet and help me build muscle while I'm losing weight, then I typically lose muscle and gain weight. So
that's not a desired outcome.
Somebody who knows what they're doing can help me with that. Okay, so the first one, I'll take this one, Drayton, then you can bring it out a little bit as well. You bring an outside objective opinion. So coaches, listen. Anybody, when my youngest daughter was in high school, her friends used to confide in her and talk about their relationships with other girls and other boys. and their teachers and their classes. And she came home one evening as a senior in high school, and she said, you know, maybe I'm a coach. And her mother and I looked at her and said, well, what are you referring to? She said, well, all my friends come to me and confide in me, and they ask me, what do I do about this situation? What do I do about my boyfriend did this, and we got in an argument, and so on and so forth. Even at high school level, she could see that bringing her outside objective opinion would change the conversation in these people's heads and in their world. And when she would play back the information to some of her girlfriends and talk to them about, well, why do you allow this to happen, or what's going on here in the relationship, it was an outside objective opinion. And all she did oftentimes was repeat back to them what they had said to her, and they said, oh, yeah, I really get it, that I'm powerless in this relationship. And that's what your clients become when they don't have an outside objective opinion, somebody to mirror for them exactly what's going on without any judgment, without assessment, without making them good or bad, right or wrong, bringing an outside objective opinion and I dare say wisdom. You also have wisdom that you bring, because all of us go through life and we make mistakes, and we get results in our life, and we sometimes learn from these mistakes or these experiences that we have, and we bring that wisdom to the table. So if I don't have a lot of experience in creating a dashboard, and I'm listening to Drayton today, and he says, well, you should really measure these areas in your business, and they go over them quarterly, but they measure them probably daily or weekly. So if I have a weakness in that area, I'm going to go to somebody and get an outside objective opinion. What should I be measuring in my business, or what should my clients be measuring in their business? And how can we create a dashboard that's a powerful indicator, something that we can measure and look at objectively, and it gives us the score for where we are in our business. So an outside objective opinion is something that the clients can't give themselves. So they can't be objective. They can't have a spouse or a friend or a relative or somebody inside of the business be objective. Once you're in a business and once you're involved with that business, you cannot be objective about it. And it's such a powerful, powerful place for people to operate. Many of the executives that I've worked with and CEOs of companies over the years have said, Coach Gary, just sitting down and talking to you and rolling out our thoughts, this is what I want, this is what I think I'm going to do, and just explaining that to you and getting your feedback, even if it's not good feedback, even if I don't understand their particular business. I remember years ago one of my clients was a union business, and they had horrible relationships with their 200 employees, and they just weren't clear as to how to have powerful relationships. And one of the things they said to me is, before they hired me, Coach Gary, we don't know how effective you're going to be. Have you ever worked with a union shop before? You know, we have to follow union guidelines and union rules with our employees, and we don't know how effective you can be. And I said to them, look, I don't either, but I do know one thing. I know a lot about relationships, and I know a lot about listening for what it is that you're going through and why your employees are not responding, why your employees feel left out, why they don't feel like they're empowered inside of your business. And so we listened, and we took a poll, a survey of the employees, and they gave us feedback. We had user groups, and I met with some of the people individually, 10 or 15 or 20 people at a time, and they said, this is what's going on in our organization, Coach Gary, and we think these changes need to take place. So I was being outside objective opinion, listening to the owners, the leaders, the ownership of the organization, and then getting feedback from the employees. And of course, everyone has expectations. It's different if you're a CEO or a vice president or a general manager of an organization, or if you're an employee. The expectations vary depending on what side of the table you're sitting on. but I was able to sit and listen to both sides objectively and find a happy medium ground, and then start working with both sides to come together. So Drayton, first one is outside objective opinion of these three powerful ways that we can work with our clients. You want to elaborate or expand on what I've said?
Yeah, this is, it might well be the most important thing we can provide to executives.
Yes.
They are in a position, I can tell you, because I'm a recovering one, and they are in a position. I was just with a gentleman week before last, and he has tens of thousands of employees, obviously a very large company. And we carved out some time, 3 hours, an afternoon after a team meeting for his executive team. And there was such a hunger for him to get some things out that he just flat out could not talk to anybody about. And there's so many different reasons for that. So even if you're an executive vice president, you're still going to defer and filter information to the CEO. That's just reality. And certain people are vying for his job. And so he's got to keep an eye on certain people, and certain people are not in a position that maybe is the best fit for the organization. So these executives are in a place where they don't go home and talk to their spouses about this stuff because they just don't. That's not the way this level works. And they don't talk to their peers because they typically don't have those peer relationships. They're way beyond the whole Vistage thing because that works for maybe more junior people, and they don't have anybody that will hear them out. And as importantly, they don't have anyone that will tell them what reality is. They live in this cocooned world where people kiss their butts, quite frankly, all the time, and kowtow to them because they want something from them. So they're always on guard. They always hear filtered information, and they don't know who to trust. And when you can come into an organization, be it a small organization or large organization, these same things apply. When you can go into an organization and you can hear what's going on by being a good coach, hear what's going on with this executive, and then not just nod your head and say, that's great or that's not, but give an opinion. Interject and say, look, here's what I'm hearing here. Would you like my take on that? And be courageous enough to step up and provide that opinion. It is invaluable. They will pay you a lot of money because you're providing something that no other human being on this planet has ever provided to them. At these levels, they don't have mentors. They don't have anything close to what you can provide. And know that if you really want to get into the executive coaching world, this is one of the most valuable things that you can bring to the table that they will pay large sums of money for. And it's not just sitting there and hearing them out and listening. It's giving an opinion. And you don't have to be a former exec. You don't have to be an MBA or PhD. You have to be in that place where you care enough about them that you're willing to tell them things that they probably don't want to hear. And I will tell you that they feel that way, and you will have that conversation up front and say, I'm going to tell you some things you probably don't want to hear, but you need to hear. That's what the message is. And they know that. And they're not getting that from any other human being. And as an executive coach, that is the incredible value that you can bring to them. You can help them see things that they can't see in their cocoon. They're so sheltered and they're not getting the information that they need. but by looking at how they work with their teams, maybe attending some team meetings, seeing how the interaction is or isn't, and seeing how they conduct themselves, you can give them that kind of insight that will help them grow as an executive and as a human being. And the burnout factor, from the imposter to the burnout factor to all the health issues with so many executives, we can help with all of those things. And it starts with being that really rock solid outside objective opinion. That's opinion. And you don't hear that in very many coaching schools. You hear that in ours. But you need to give them your opinion. That's what they're looking for. If you meander and you just ask a bunch of questions, they're going to toss you out on your ear. You need to provide an opinion. Always ask permission. Hey, this is what's coming up for me. Do you want to hear about it? Make sure that's part of the way you operate with them. But these folks need you, and they need an opinion about certain things, and you need to bust them. And that really leads to number 2, Gary, the whole accountability piece and being their accountability partner. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I love the way we're taking our time with this, Drayton. Sometimes I feel like we beat a topic to death, but I think each one of these areas needs to be explained, and each one of these areas we need to give examples so that people can really understand what we mean when we say outside objective opinion or an accountability partner. So when we talk about, as an example, an accountability partner, moving to the second powerful area, we're not talking about someone who is measuring the dashboard or looking at the dashboard with them, although that could be a part of it. What we're speaking of here is somebody to hold them accountable. And just like the outside objective opinion, they can't own this on their own. And as Drayton pointed out, they can't have some of these others that are vying for their role or are just kowtowing down to them and giving them the answers that they want or agreeing with them every time they have a conversation for fear of their job or losing their job. We can bring an outside objective opinion and bring a very powerful accountability relationship to the table. So when I have meetings with executives and I'm coaching them, typically the way the hour to 90 minutes goes is I ask them before we get started, after we greet each other, and how's it going, and how's the so-and-so project coming along? Are we almost done? Or the protocol stuff of relationship. After we get past that, then I typically say, so let's take a look at your assignments that you promised to get done this last week. And they vary from reading a certain book or reading half or a percentage of a certain book that they committed to. In many cases, they committed to having an uncomfortable conversation with the sales manager or another executive, somebody else in the organization, or it could be even somebody junior down the line that's an employee that they feel that needs a deep and rich conversation. It can be firing somebody, letting somebody go that's a key player in the organization that they've been not willing to do in the past, but in conversations with them, in the coaching conversations, they keep this name keeps coming up. And why is it that you're tolerating this behavior? Why are you not moving forward? Why are you not writing them up, reprimanding them, taking care of the situation when this person is not keeping their promises to you? You are the leader and the senior accountability partner of the entire organization. You need to hold that person accountable, or as it gets too far down the line, then they say to me that that they need to replace that person. I ask them by how long, by what date will you let them go, and by when will you have a replacement for them, or a job posting or go to the HR department and start a search for a replacement for that individual. And they're reluctant to do it. They're not used to having people hold them accountable. And if you don't hold them accountable, if you're not, and I don't just say accountability partner, if you're not a powerful accountability partner, they're not going to have one in their life. And it's not going to be their spouse. It's not going to be the vice president. It's not even going to be their business partner or somebody who's a stockholder. That might be the case, but typically a business coach is the most powerful accountability partner that they can have. So the first part of the meeting is, what assignments did you agree to? By what dates? And we have them check in on that at the beginning. Then at the end of the meeting, then they say, okay, we went over this and this and this and this, Coach Gary. Then I say, okay, so here's your assignment for this week. Finish reading the book that you didn't read or committed to reading part of. Make that key business decision and move forward with that decision that you have been considering, and start working on the outline for the upcoming annual retreat, and I want to see that draft of that by next week when we meet next, or I want it emailed to me by a certain date. And I write the information down, and that goes on the notes that I have for that particular week's meetings. So oftentimes they're used to the routine after a few meetings and know that I'm going to ask them these questions. What did you finish your assignments? What did you do? And then create new assignments. That way the work gets done, not when you're there in front of them, but the work gets done in between your coaching sessions. So you're the accountability partner, you're the outside objective opinion that keeps them on track, because if you don't, there's not going to be anybody else that will. And one more detail before I turn it back over to Drayton, and that is, as an accountability partner, you're not there to make them wrong, feel guilty or bad, or hold them accountable, and then when they're not, make them feel bad about it. So if you are a powerful accountability partner, a lot of times you can hold them accountable, but you can let go of good and bad, right and wrong. So they're not good or bad if they do or don't do their homework assignment. It's not right or wrong. It's just an accountability piece. I had a conversation with a gentleman this morning who did most of his assignments. He missed it on one mark, and he said, Coach Gary, you can count on me. I'll get that done this week along with my other assignments. I apologize. And we didn't have a long, elaborate conversation about it. I just teach them that if you're in integrity, you keep your promise to me, and that keeps the integrity pure. If you're out of integrity, then all you need to do is apologize and recommit to me to get back on track so that we know when you're going to finish the job. Making them feel wrong or guilty is not part of the territory. It's just powerfully making sure that you let them know that every week you're going to hold them accountable to their promises and keep them on track. Drayton, back to you, sir.
Yeah, I think this is an area where a lot of coaches struggle. And the struggle is around, boy, are they going to like me if I bust them? And they're paying me X amount per month, and if I tick them off, they're going to fire me as a coach. And we're here to tell you that that is part of your duty. We call it using the velvet whip, and that's meant different things to different people over the years, I guess, but we really emphasize this piece in particular as one of our key roles as an executive coach. And a lot of coaches may lack the confidence to step in and really require these types of things, as Gary described them, of a client that's paying you hopefully a lot of money every single month to do the work with you. And we need to make sure that it happens. And you cannot be shy, and you cannot be meek and demure around being their powerful accountability partner. You need to step up and bust their chops. And I say that with great love, and we always do it in a very, gentlemanly, in my case, gentlemanly fashion with love, yet we're not shy about it. And it's one of the things that is one of the most important things that we bring to the table is having the courage to step up and say, let's say this person's making $1 million a year, and step up and go, you committed to this particular thing and you did not do it, and I want to know why. There are, as Gary said, very few people that are in powerful positions in, well, once they got there, early in their career it may have been different, but once they got to these powerful positions, people don't hold them accountable. They just don't. And a lot of times what we have seen too is that they don't hold their people accountable, or they may do it in a very unproductive way. And what you can do, and part of all of this that we're talking about, is that you're teaching them coaching skills at the same time you're coaching them. And we hear it all the time when people come back, clients come back and go, yes, I was working with one of my people, and I heard your words coming out of my mouth, and this is what I did that you did with me 6 months ago, and this is how it worked out. We're creating a coaching culture. And being a powerful accountability partner is part of that. And you can teach your clients how to be better at holding their people accountable in a very positive fashion that they may have not had that skill before. So remember, all these things that we're doing with our clients continue on, and they grow, and they permeate through an organization. And that's one of the beautiful things about coaching, is that it's contagious. And as we work with people, they do start mirroring what they're learning from us. And it is so cool when we go into an organization. Let's say we've been working with an executive for a few months, and you visit them in their organization, and you start seeing them employ some of the techniques that you've taught them by doing the work with them. And part of that is being this powerful accountability partner. And you can do it in a very loving, caring fashion. You don't have to yell and scream or do anything else. Accountability is a great thing if done properly. And it's not micromanaging. It's simply getting them to commit to the right things to help them improve on a daily basis, and asking them the question, hey, did you do it? Did you get this accomplished? And then if they didn't, work through that and ask them. I love the integrity thing, Gary, just in terms of, this is an integrity play. You committed to me to do this certain thing, and right now you told me you did not do this. I really want to know why. And they'll be shocked at first, no doubt about it. And then you will train them. You will train them to be more accountable and to pass that on. And it starts helping create this culture that's much more positive, that's focused on the right things. And it all starts with the work that we do with our clients one-on-one. And that one-on-one work can have a ripple effect on potentially thousands upon thousands of people. Gary, your thoughts on that?
Just great stuff, Drayton. And I want to add a couple of emphasize a couple of things that you talked about. These three areas, we talked about the methodology a lot when we did the Webex presentation, and the last couple of months we've been talking about some of these things with the people on the call here in Coaching Crucible. And if you have a methodology, God bless you, and utilize your methodology, develop it. Another word for methodology is system, the process, the way that you coach your clients, and it's should be something that your clients can see going down the road, a pattern of where you're taking them. But if if you're not employing these three techniques, if you're not using these three tools as the top tools in your toolbox, then I don't know how well your methodology is going to work. Or I would say it differently. I'd say your methodology should be built around these kinds of tools, because you're bringing these things to the table, as we've emphasized several times already in this conversation, they can't do on their own. And for us to be able to provide them with something that has real power and tangible results, we're talking about return on investment, ROI, tangible results, holding them accountable to doing the things that they may be shy about, that they may not want to do, that they may not think is critical. But in the conversation with you, they'll learn how important these things are. It's just really sound coaching style. It's really powerful coaching that any relationship can leverage to get a really powerful ROI. So I hope you're taking notes, and I hope you're taking note of the examples as we go into this third area. I'm going to kind of talk about all three of these interchangeably, but this third area, if you're doing the first thing, being an outside objective opinion, if you're holding them, your clients accountable to what you and they have agreed to do, and that's, as Drayton says, it's integrity. They made you a promise, and if they're a person of integrity, they'll keep their promise. Then the third thing is they will get results. They'll get results in areas where they previously have struggled. And this is what's so powerful about these tools, and interchangeably and leveraging these tools to get the results that you want to get. If they have struggled, for example, with a dashboard, and they've had one or two key indicators that they've been using to measure their business, and they're only measuring it at the end of the year or the end of the quarter or the midpoint of the year, and it's critical that, like Drayton, that maybe they have 10 indicators, or maybe there's 5, or maybe there's 15. But if they're struggling in those areas, and you see that they haven't been measuring and using a dashboard, just bringing this to their awareness, just every week saying, what's changed in the dashboard? Are we keeping score? So new customer count, for example. If the goal is 20 new customers per month, then every week you could be asking them, how many new customers did we bring in last week? If customer retention or employee retention is important, in some organizations, employee retention is really critical. It's important that they do a good job of employee retention. If they want to measure that, how many employees did we lose this week or this month or this last 2 weeks? If they're continually measuring areas where they haven't been measuring before, where they are weak, where for example, if you're working with the CEO of an organization and sales are off, what's the communication between you and the senior sales manager, VP of sales? How are you holding him accountable or her accountable? What's the conversations you're having with them? And believe me, folks, sometimes the bigger the organization, the more reluctant they are to have these conversations. And again, you're holding them accountable in areas where they don't want to be held accountable, and you are forcing their hand in a very gentle and velvet-lined way to do things that are going to get them results. And ultimately, they are going to get a return on their coaching dollar. So if their goal is to bring the bottom line of the organization from 7% to 10%, you don't have to have an MBA to be able to figure that out. The goal is, we are now, like my mother's goal, her goal now is to make it to her 96th birthday. She's got 2 months to go, and then she'll set a new goal for that. If your goal is to go from 7 to 9%, bottom line, on a $20 million company, just to pick an example, then the conversations that you're creating are around that are not MBA conversations. Unless you are an MBA, then that's different. But like, what are we doing? What are we measuring? How are we measuring it? What would we move? What bar, what needle, what area of our company would we change to move the needle closer from 7% bottom line profit to 9% bottom line profit? One of my clients referred to it as, he says, Coach Gary, you're always shining light on the area where it's the darkest, where we don't want to look because we're embarrassed at the results that we're getting. So you're shining a light in an area, and many of these areas will be predetermined in your relationship when you start the relationship, a brand new relationship with your client. So you should be making a list in your agreement with them, your written letter of agreement. What are the top 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 goals where's the focus going to be on? Well, we know the industry is producing, by and large, a 9% bottom line profit. We can only get ours up to 7%. Okay, great. That's a goal. You don't have to know how to do that. It's just a goal. You start with that goal. Well, we also know that the retention, employee retention in our industry is 96.5%, and we're 78%. Okay, great. That's another goal. So you're holding them accountable to look at these results, and you're shining the light in these areas, and you keep the conversation going on and on and on. You're bringing that outside objective opinion. You're holding them accountable to keep these conversations going. You're focusing on the results that they want to get and do not know how to get prior to the engagement. And in fact, for most of you, you won't know how to get those results for them either. But the way to create that results is to keep the conversation alive. Keep focusing and shining the light in the areas where their goals are biggest and where they are the weakest. And when you keep a conversation alive, when you keep asking questions, what else can we do? What else can we do? What else can we do that can move that needle forward? And take these measurements, and again, Drayton started off by giving you areas where his organization measures the top 10 key indicators that they focus on. They will get results, and you will help them get results just by keeping the conversation alive, just by focusing the brightest light in that area. So Drayton, I'm going to turn it back to you. I have lots more to say about all of these things, but I want to give you a chance to mirror what I've said and add to what we've just been talking about.
I think one of the really important things around this particular area of focus is it's a fresh set of eyes. And again, you don't have to be a former executive or an MBA or anything. It's common sense with what Gary was saying about, asking the questions and coming in and looking at a situation. I'll give you an example. I was on the line with a client last week, and we're putting together his desire. He owns 3 different companies, and his desire is to have X amount of money in the bank within 5 years. And we were talking about increasing the worth in the marketplace when he goes to sell one of the companies. And again, this is just math, and I use math a lot in our coaching work, and I would encourage you to be speaking to the math and thinking about the math. Like Gary was saying, the return on investment, that's math. The math rules the day in the business world. So we were looking at the math, because I always ask him, okay, so let's do the math. So he was telling me that he wanted to grow one of his companies in this particular area. And I said, great. And I said, tell me why. And he went on to tell me that we've got expertise here, etc. And he listed a few things. And then I said, okay, so tell me what your profit margins are in that area. And he said they were about 10%. I said, okay, let's look at the other areas where you derive profit. And we looked at the other areas, and some of them were as high as 40%. And in fact, we got to the point where we identified one division in his organization that if he just pulled out that division and created a separate company, it would be worth more than his current company. And he had not seen that before. And the reason was he looked at these, he was so close to this, he did not realize that this one division was making all the money in the organization to the point where it was covering up losses in other areas. So if he simply pulled out that organization and set up a separate company and then sold that, the multiples that that company would be worth were about 2 to 3 times more than the way he had his current company structured. And this was nothing but pure math and looking at it objectively as an outside person. And it didn't take any great skill or experience on my part. It was very sound logic. And those are the kinds of things that we can bring to organizations, that objectivity, because these people are in the middle of the firefight every single day, and they oftentimes, majority of the time, can't see the reality. And this is what we can help them to see and then do something about it. And we went on to work to the point where we identified that one executive that's running one of his companies had such an attachment to one of these divisions that was bleeding money, and he couldn't let go of it. And so work had to be done around that because they were losing a ton of money. And it was driving down the worth of the organization. So we have these conversations, and it's so important to have these, to let them talk, to look at things objectively, and then raise the issues. Don't bury it. Don't become demure about it and say, oh, I shouldn't bring this up because it's going to be a touchy subject. Bring it up. And you can bring that fresh set of eyes to a situation, whether you're an outside objective opinion, an accountability partner, or helping them get results in areas that have been their biggest struggles. And in this example I gave you, their area, their struggles have been their net profit. It was so low, and they couldn't figure out what to do about it. And when we had the conversations, it became abundantly clear. And Gary, it's situations like that where we have these conversations and we ask the right questions and we help them to see the obvious choice and to voice our opinion about that and hold them accountable for whatever action they agree to take on as a result of our work. So all these 3 things that we've talked about today are all extremely powerful and the underpinnings of our work as coaches with our clients. And if you hone in on these 3 things and identify, we've talked about it many times before, what your niche is and the points of pain that you help people with in that particular niche, your business will grow. You have to focus on these things. It's the fundamentals, and be very, very clear about what you bring to the table. And when you can tell people, I'm an outside objective opinion and a sounding board, I'm your accountability partner, and I can help you realize results in areas that you've struggled. If you focus on those 3 things and you've got your niche identified and you've got the points of pain that that's addressing, you have the makings of a very solid coaching business. Gary, we've got a couple of great comments here I just wanted to offer up to everybody before we get to the top of the hour. One person said, we were talking about the whole accountability, do you hold your clients accountable? Yes, I have learned to be much more confident about that. I have found that my own assurances helps them to trust and invest in the process. I had to stop thinking about myself. I love that. And I think that's such isn't that great? And it's such a key point in that this is not about us. This is not about being the smartest person in the room. This is not being 10 feet tall and bulletproof. This is simply about serving other people. And when we show up with that one desire, all of these other things that we've talked about today, it takes the edge off of being an accountability partner. It puts everything in a different light. And really, that your client will get it. If you're there to be of service, simply be of service to them, it can't be about you. You agree, Gary?
Absolutely. And one thing that you talked about that I want to emphasize, Drayton, and then I want to give everybody a little gift here today, is you talked about doing the math and common sense. To have common sense, you don't have to be an MBA. Mm-hmm. To have common sense, you might have a different set of common sense than your clients. So they may be smart people, they may be the smartest person in the room, but you're asking questions and wondering why they're struggling in certain areas because they can't see the forest for the trees, but you can. And again, you don't have to be an MBA or a seasoned coach or a experienced business person to have common sense. So you're bringing logic to the table in this outside objective opinion, oftentimes, logic that's different than the logic that they're using. And then the other thing that I wanted to emphasize, I want to put a little marketing tip in every week, every month when we do these calls, Drayton, and that is that if you folks who are listening today like these three areas that we brought to the table, if this has given you some confidence, then I would say that each and every one of you, and I don't know each and every one of you, I probably don't know anybody on the call or hardly anybody on the call, each and every one of you should be having conversations with people, even total strangers. Your question for them should be, who's your coach? Who's coaching you right now? And if they say they don't have a coach, my suggestion to you would be you give them a facial expression of disappointment and say, oh, really? Why don't you have a coach? And regardless of what they say, you might say, you know, I remember when Michael Jordan was at the peak of his career, he had a coach or maybe two or three coaches. And most athletes, not most, all athletes have coach. All Olympic medalists have coaches. Most of the people in the arts and in acting and in singing and in performing have coaches. And all of these people don't necessarily like what their coach tells them. All of these people can't be their own accountability partner, and all of these people can produce more results with a coach than without a coach. So everyone needs a coach. Everyone needs to have that outside objective opinion, that accountability partner, and somebody who can point towards results in areas where they can't get it on their own. So there's a golden opportunity here for you to develop your methodology, your system, your coaching business around these three areas and leverage that into finding clients regardless of where you are and regardless of what kind of relationship you have with those individuals. And that's what I have to say about all of that, Drayton.
Mm-hmm. And know that there are millions of people out there that need you. Millions all over the globe. And hopefully today you've picked up some information that'll help you expand your business, to do it better, and to show up as a better coach. Gary, I thank you for being with us. We're at the top of the hour. The recording will be posted as we always do on YouTube. Just search Executive Coaching University and all the coaching crucibles are there, and subscribe, and you'll get them sent to your desk every single month when we do this. And we appreciate you. We're glad that you spent this time with us. And if we may be of service in any way, please let us know. And until next month, Gary, everyone take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you in July.